Two scripture readings this morning. The first is from Proverbs 1, verses 29 to 33. And this is from the New Living Translation. For they hated knowledge and chose not to fear the Lord. They rejected my advice and paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear or harm. And the second scripture reading is Psalm 6. O Lord, don't rebuke me in your anger or discipline me in your rage. Have compassion on me, Lord, for I am weak. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. I am sick at heart. How long, O Lord, until you restore me? Return, O Lord, and rescue me. Save me because of your unfailing love. For the dead do not remember you. Who can praise you from the grave? I am worn out from sobbing. All night I flood my bed with weeping, drenching it with my tears. My vision is blurred by grief. My eyes are worn out because of all my enemies. Go away, all you who do evil. For the Lord has heard my weeping. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord will answer my prayer. May all my enemies be disgraced and terrified. May they suddenly turn back in shame. God's word for God's people.
We're going to show a short, very short video as a sermon illustration of times of grief and ways that we can respond without, from Proverbs we heard wisdom talking, and there are times we can just not pay any attention to God's wisdom, and there are serious consequences for ourselves and for others, and this little video helps illustrate that.
Used to work almost 12 to 15 hours a day in 10 by 10 building with 6 people. There was a time that I could not even breathe because I had to just work and work and work, and our payment is literally like less than $2 a day. So to keep up with their orders, we literally had to work from morning 4 a.m. to all the way to midnight. And imagine being 9 or 10-year-old and working for that many hours. And I would say that whoever is going to wear these clothes, I hope they can feel me. I hope they can see my tears. I hope they can feel my bloods. And I hope they can just give me a chance to be free of this suffering. Right now, there are more than 200 million child laborers are involved in this. Almost 40.3 million people are in that slavery, and I lived that same life for 2 years like that. So when I came to America, and when I walked into this major department store, and that is when I really had a shock. That is when I realized where my clothes were getting sold and how disconnected the people were from the source of manufacturing, and how unconsciously we are consuming suffering, and it's a human suffering. It's not just a resource from our earth, but it's a human suffering. We are literally, in a really crazy way, we are literally eating each other. So who is responsible for that? We all are responsible, and especially people in America or in Europe who have access to technology, who have access to all this information. We have been heavily, non-stop, brain washed, on and on, that we all do things, this will make you look good, but they never thought that if you buy these things, it's contributing some children or some women and some people life over there. And not only that, it's taking natural resources. The millennials literally need to figure out that what are we contributing in? Are we contributing to the suffering, or are we contributing to something beautiful and blessing? So it's about choice, and the more good choice that we make, the more people we will save. So if you really want to experience something, fight against the thing which is not right. I was
Fight against the thing that's not right. It's so easy for us in our comfortable lives not to know what's not right. And that's what in Proverbs, the first reading, is all about. Wisdom, God's wisdom, all around us, trying to touch us, trying to move us, trying to change us. The scriptures say that complacency can kill us and kill others, crush some people into the dirt. And it's so easy to shock. We joke about it. We do it all the time. We clutter up our houses with stuff. There's this new show on Netflix I just discovered. What's her name? She wrote a book. Apparently this is a very popular show. Ron is encouraging me to watch it. Marie Kondo, I'm sure I'm saying her name wrong. She's from Japan and she's a tidiness expert. And she invites people, for example, to take, some of us may have trouble picturing this, but every single article of clothing in your house, every single one, put it all in one pile, like on your bed, maybe overflowing from your bed, but one pile, and go through every single thing, touch it personally. What you're supposed to say is if it sparks joy, you can keep it. If you are feeling no joy from this stuff, you have to thank it for how it has served you and put it aside, and either gets thrown out or given to our thrift store. Thrift stores everywhere are kind of overflowing with the result of these things. You do it in your clothes, you do it in your kitchen, you do it in your garage, and the reason it's so necessary, like the crisis of storage. You know how many people have storage units? And why do you have storage units? Because you have so much stuff that you're not using that you need to pay money for another place to keep your stuff. And people are literally, in this country, drowning in stuff, getting their time sucked off by organizing and moving and tripping over their stuff. But people that we don't even really think about, like when we pick an article of clothing, we get this red hot deal from it at Bells. But it's got a little tag in it, made in Bangladesh, made in, wherever. All those wonderful cheap things we can give for Christmas presents that are made in China, they are not made by folks who are getting a nice living wage and leading a really comfortable life. They're really cheap because of a lot of child labor in China. There are lots of political prisoners and they're forced to work. Those working conditions are not good. And so it's possible for us to consider how much stuff do we have? How much stuff do we need? What are we doing with our stuff? And how does that affect people, including little children, whose lives are so harmed? And to hear her, it's so heartbreaking to hear her say when she was forced to work like that, how she would just be thinking, praying, the person who has this article of clothes, I hope they can feel my pain, feel my suffering. And most of us think, I got this new outfit, it was only $9. And that can be a source of joy, but at the same time, it turns out it's a source of death. Now, this is kind of an advertisement for our thrift store, not getting rid of the too much stuff, not just that. But when you buy clothing from thrift stores, you are not contributing to this, because those clothes were already bought and paid for, they already exist on the planet. You're helping stop some of the waste stream, so you're helping the environment, because this stuff doesn't just kill people, it kills the environment. So that's one way we can make a difference. So there's wisdom trying to nudge us. And then from Psalms, and you remember I take the readings from the one-year Bible and the readings. So this week we have both of those touch my heart because they kind of go together, really. Wisdom trying to touch us, trying to change us, trying to get us to respond. And we always have that choice. It's easy to say, I'm going to take care of that tomorrow. Tomorrow is such a good day for doing stuff, isn't it? And so we can do that, and we can be used to our habits. But that kind of gets us right to the psalm, where the psalmist is sobbing so much, his or her bed is soaked in tears because there's so much suffering. And there's this crying to God, almost like trying to work on God. Look, if I die, who's going to praise you then? And some of it can seem like, what are you trying to do? You know, kind of nudge God into doing what you want God to do. But it's also suggested that maybe not that at all. Maybe that's the call where we're realizing our own mortality and our own inability to control what happens. That's one of the best pieces of instruction that wisdom has to teach us ever. We're not in control. There are times in our lives when things are steaming along just well, our kids are healthy, we have a nice job, the weather is good. When those things are happening, it's easy to feel like, yeah, boy. I mean, I used to do it in parenting. There'd be times when I think, boy, do I know how to parent? And then, oh, you know what would break loose? And I think, well, you know, maybe it's harder than it looks. But when we get it, that we're not in control, and there are times of disease where when we get a cancer diagnosis, that's a big wake-up call. We're not in charge. Where someone we love wrestles with addiction, that is a big wake-up call. We are not in charge. We are not in control. And those of us who have had wisdom slap us upside of the head enough times begin to get it. That holding on or trying to hold on to control, trying to look good on the outside is a huge waste of time. Because the truth is, when we compare ourselves to others, a friend of mine was really good at saying this, what we're doing is comparing our insides, because we know our own insides, to other people's outsides. And people always look a lot neater, a lot more cleaned up, a lot more together on the outside than any of us are on the inside. Those of us who are now or have been pastors know that as they look out on a congregation, maybe other people are seeing these real put-together people, but some of us are seeing folks that are bleeding all over the floor. You just may not be seeing their blood this morning, but it is pouring out for a lot of reasons that you don't know. So learning to be gentle with one another, learning to be willing to accept that there is way more pain around us than we can ever touch, name, or know. But when it comes up against us, then like the children's time, we've got to figure out there's too much stuff in this boat and it is going down. So that's when it is time to say, well, maybe I won't do that. Maybe I won't do this other thing. Maybe I will share with prayer group what's going on. Maybe I will talk to the pastor. Maybe I will call my mom. Whatever it is that allows us to connect with other human beings who are going to care and walk beside us. That's one of the ways to negotiate those times that hurt more than we can ever imagine. And God's truth is, we all have them. Remember when I was in my late 20s and I was a young mom and things were good, you know, Ron was doing a new job he really liked, I was home with his little baby, and I was going to a prayer group, and there were older women in the prayer group, and they were talking about terrible times in their lives that they'd survived, and how everybody knows at some point really terrible times. And at that age, that was hard to hear because it was kind of like hearing a curse. You know, like, okay, it's good now, but you just wait. But it was true. It was true. Things were really good and smooth and simple in ways that at some point in my life they would never be so good and smooth and simple again, because I would have to learn and grow. But that's why the psalmist is pleading out to God. God, you hold all that is. Help me change. Help my situation be different than it is. And there is hope in that kind of outpouring where we feel completely broken. Because the part about being broken never feels good when it happens. But the part about being broken that works is that when our hearts are cracked open, there's more room. There's a space created where God can operate, where when we give up on our own control, our own smooth sailing, and we have to say, this is not working, God. What might work? Because we all have our own coping strategies, and sometimes, and that's where the wisdom from Proverbs comes in, about you have choices, and some of those choices, some of those complacency can lead to death. Because there's the way, like in that video, our choices can be harming others that we're not pausing to consider. But the other thing is sometimes our coping mechanisms, there are people who smoke because that's calming. Helps them steady their nerves. The nicotine might give them a little more energy. It becomes a pattern and a habit. And Donna Lambert isn't here today, right? But you got a high five her the next time you see her. She is 2 weeks smoke-free. And that is huge because sometimes those habits, those coping strategies that have worked for us really start not working for us. Alcohol is another one. You know, we think, oh well, it's relaxing, I'm just going to chill, I've really earned this. But if that becomes a pattern, what we don't hear in that alcohol we're pouring is the hiss of what can come back and bite us and actually kill us. And for some of us, that becomes such a terrible struggle and black hole. Others of us might think, what the heck? Why is that such a draw? Ron and I have talked about oxycodone, you know, that painkiller that people are literally dying for. I know from Maine a social worker who is addicted to it, and I happen to know that she steals it from people's houses, friends, family members, clients, because she's an addict and she's trying not to be. She wants not to be. It's a nightmare. And Ron and I have talked about, because there's a couple times in his life where he's had to use it for something, and he says to me, when he takes oxycodone, he feels a mild sense of euphoria, and it knocks out the pain. I've had to have it like when I broke my wrist, and I thought, what the heck, it didn't even knock out the pain that great. And it did not, no sense of euphoria, was not loopy, could drive, it wasn't doing anything, and my wonder drug is ibuprofen. So I don't stay away from oxycodone because I'm like such a good person, but because my body chemistry is different and it doesn't affect me the way it might affect some other people. Same thing with alcohol, same thing with cigarettes. They're poison, and for some of us our poison is not a substance. It's being so darn busy that we don't take that quiet time, that peaceful time, to recharge and regroup and simply be. When we're so introverted, we don't let ourselves be called out a little. Or when we're so extroverted that we think we always have to be at a party, and quiet time is death. Like if we're not talking to someone, we're invisible. Well, we're never invisible to God. And there are ways that God provides for healing and strength that can change us. But we have to be called to listen to wisdom, knocking at the doors of our hearts, saying, maybe not that, or maybe this. to dare to try something different. We have to dare to change. And we always have to dare to share our burdens